If a sizable portion of the Democratic electorate here in Michigan votes uncommitted during the primary, that will be a 5-alarm fire for the White House and for the Biden campaign.
Outside Oakland University, near Detroit. That's Dave Dulio, the political analyst for the university. Welcome back to America Decides. The Biden campaign is facing multiple challenges in Michigan, including tonight's uncommitted protest vote. We'll see what that means come November. And for more on that, let's bring in our panel. Brakkton Booker, Dante Chinni, Brakkton's national political reporter at Politico. Dante is founder of the American Communities Project at Michigan State University, also a political reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Sorry to invoke the other university on you there. Brakkton, what do we make of this uncommitted vote campaign, and what would make it a success?
Well, look, I think it's more of the same. You're seeing fissures within the Democratic Party. Folks who are unenthused about the Biden reelection. You have folks who are saying, like, hey, you are standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. You need to change course. And this is the first step that Michigan is to show that, hey, we are not standing in lockstep with you because you have not been open to our concerns about how this war in Gaza is taking place. And so you need to actually change direction here. And certainly we're going to see how many people show up. The previous uncommitteds have ranged around the 20,000 vote range. So I think success needs to be in the 30,000 vote range today to really send a message that this effort is far different than any other committed effort that we've seen in previous cycles. But we'll see what happens once the polls close.
Dante, it's a winter day in Michigan. Somebody goes out in the car to go vote uncommitted.
Yeah.
Should I read that as they're persuadable still because they're engaged?
Right.
They're not just staying home on the couch to protest what they see.
Right. Well, they're also not voting. There are a lot of ways you could cast a protest vote where you could vote in the Republican primary. It's no primary in Michigan.
Yep.
So you could do that. Yeah, I think they're engaged. I think they're still gettable. The other way I think to think about it is, look, there's a lot of talk of the Arab American population in Michigan. It's about 220,000 people in a state of 10 million, okay? It's not massive. Now, look, if elections can be very close, we saw that in 2016. So every vote, but if you get to the point where it's like, look, 10,000 votes can cost you the election, if you really get that close, it could be anybody. I mean, it could be any voting bloc. It could be young people didn't turn out. It could be African-American voters didn't turn out. It could be Arab-American voters didn't turn out. But I think that if you're Biden and you're looking at results tonight, you don't want to see that number. I would shy away from a real number. I'd say like 10%. In 2010 or in 2012, Barack Obama ran unopposed in Michigan, Democratic primary. About 10% of the vote, even then, went uncommitted.
Brakkton, so much focus, rightfully so, is on what happens in and near Detroit. You talk about Michigan. Primaries or general election. There's massive counties, Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County. What do you make of the Biden campaign's effort to do what it needs to do in that area, city of Detroit, Wayne County, where they need not just margins, they need huge margins? Yeah,
you got to run up the score there, right? Mm-hmm. And what you really need to do is make sure you're taking care of the base of your party, right? I think what remains to be seen is whether or not there is this enthusiasm for Biden, whether or not folks on the ground can actually get folks to the polls. And look, it's hard to really put a fine point on this uncommitted vote, because I was talking to a political strategist today, somebody who works at the DNC. And she's like, look, this is important, but like no one is tearing their hair out about this, because they know that on the other side is Trump. Right. Trump has first couple of days put in a Muslim ban. So they are not so worried that folks are not going to show up in November. Sure, they'll take what this protest vote actually will be. They'll assess, they'll re-engage with these voters, but they are not overly worried about this being a dramatic fallout from folks who will turn out for Biden in November.
That's a campaign. There's lots of things for everybody to tear their hair out about. There's many reasons to want to pull your hair out. This may be just one of them. Mm-hmm. To that end, one of the things we'll note when we go to Michigan, major university cities, a little purple hue to them. East Lansing, where Michigan State is, Kalamazoo, Western Michigan. What do you make of what you've seen so far of youth vote, young voters in Michigan? Are they ambivalent, or are they disappointed?
So I can answer this question directly. I co-teach a class at Michigan State, so I'm there talking to the students a couple times a month. They are not engaged right now. I mean, look, it's a primary. Look, it's tough. It's tough to get the college students to turn out for a general. To get them to turn out for a primary is very, very, very difficult. They're not super engaged. Also, this is a kind of weird fact, but people should have this in their back pockets for tonight. Michigan and Michigan State, the two largest universities in the state of Michigan, are both on spring break this week. Which is just something to keep in mind when we watch the results come in. That's a lot of kids that aren't there. So that's something to...
Let's take a moment and reflect on the fact that Michigan celebrates spring break on February 27th.
Winter break, yeah.
Fair enough. Now, youth apathy is different than youth disappointment.
Yeah.
And it begs the next question, Dante, what does this look like in Michigan, a Trump-Biden rematch as we move toward November? Does it look different in political complexion than other states?
Than in other states, yeah. Because Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, which we always talk about as this blue wall states a lot, they share one very important thing in common. They have this huge block of suburban, white, blue-collar voters that are huge for Donald Trump. He needs that. He needs that vote. Just like the Democrat, Biden in this case in 2024, needs the big urban vote out of Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia. So that's something to keep in mind. Those things really make Michigan and those other states stand out. What does it look like? We were talking about this in the weigh-in, like to try to get a read right now on what things are going to look like in 24 and say, maybe it'll look like 2020, maybe it'll look like 2016. It just feels like everything is unsettled right now. And maybe some of it is the war in the Middle East and dealing with inflation and just things, and maybe even the general feelings that the voters have about Trump and Biden. But it feels very unsettled right now. But it's the most, normally at this point in an election season, I mean, I don't ever make predictions because I don't like doing that. But in my head, I'm like, I think I know how this is going to go. I'm less sure this year than I normally would be.
Well, you make the point about being unsettled, but it's also, the ideas about these two presidential nominees are very hardened, right?
Yeah.
These are not unknowns. These are not folks who are new onto the scene. So the idea that Biden or Trump are going to sway new voters to come out or change minds.
Yeah, changing minds.
It's really hard to even imagine how that's going to look. I think folks are, look, the primary is over. The primary has been over, really. And folks are just ready to get to November. Now, what November looks like, whether or not it's apathy, whether or not these two candidates are going to be competing with the couch, right? Like that is what remains to be seen for both of these campaigns. But I don't think Biden or Trump or the Republicans or Democrats are really going to change anybody's mind between now and November. But I do think, international forces, international things are going to really drive what people do.
There's a lot of talk in every election about persuadables. Don't do that in 2024. Okay, there just aren't a lot of persuadables out there. It's a sliver of the electorate. It's really talking about whether or not you get your voters out. It's the voters versus the couch. Yeah.
Dante, Brakkton, good information. Thank you both.